on in Perak over the past week or so, we encounter these obstacles. And my worry is that for too long, we in Malaysia have settled for certain political assumptions that we take to be norms that are sacrosanct and cannot be questioned. I'll give you another example. Of course, we sent someone to space. Yeah? And if you recall, during the process where there was this selection, one other possible candidate would have been another Malaysian, but a woman, and a Malaysian of Indian origin. The prevailing wisdom then was, no, we have to respect the demographic realities of Malaysia. And so whoever we send out on this Russian tin can into outer space will have to come from the majority community. This is the sort of prevailing wisdom which I think has to be questioned from now on. Because surely if, as we have been told, this administration currently running the country, I don't know for how much longer, but this current administration was an administration of Malaysians for all Malaysians, then surely it should have been brave enough to say, hang on, let's send her to space instead. This would have been such an important, such a valuable, symbolic moment for Malaysia that would demonstrate that we've transcended racial politics. And yet, again and again, we allow the powers that be to dictate the terms of our political culture. What happened last weekend was proof that I think the Malaysian public, for once, is now asserting its will, demanding change, demanding a rethinking of the political culture that we want to give birth to in this country. And for that reason, I always say, maybe we missed the chance to send a Malaysian woman of Indian origin to space, but we still have a chance to send her to the Prime Minister's office in Putrajaya. And we should not be afraid to even entertain that possibility. We should not be afraid to entertain that possibility. So the freeing of our minds, the time has come for us to imagine what was up till recently thought unimaginable. And I think what has happened over the last weekend, this rupture that has occurred as a result, this opens up opportunities for all of us, not just society, but even the political parties, to imagine new possibilities, new political realities that we can create and construct in Malaysia today. So in the same way that I think the election results of last weekend prove that the time has come for change and that Malaysians are prepared for change, this demand for change, I think, can also be applied to the political parties, both in government and in opposition. For a start, I think UMNO today is in desperate need of help from East Malaysia. And yet, as we know, the prevailing political culture in this country has been somewhat lopsided over the past 4 decades, vis-a-vis East Malaysia at least. Now, UMNO, of course, presents itself as a party of Bumi Putra interests. Yet how many people, how many members of UMNO have even entertained the possibility that the leader of UMNO may come from the Bumi Putra community, but not necessarily a Malay? Can you imagine that Kadazan is the leader of UMNO? An Iban, Bajau, or Peranakan? Well, perhaps now, with this rupture, this dislocation, we can begin to imagine these things. And we look at another party, PAS, which has claimed for so long that it has transcended racial politics by foregrounding an Islamic vision of society where being Muslim is the only criteria for being the leader of PAS. I look forward to the day where the president of PAS, the chief minister of Kelantan, and perhaps even the Mursyidul Am, the spiritual guide of PAS, may be a Chinese Muslim or an Indian Muslim. And on that day, I think PAS would have finally lived up to its promise of being a non-racialist party. Now, there are, however, some provisions that we need to make, some cautionary notes that we need to take at this point in time. We are at a point where I think the nation is in flux. And like I said, we are on the frontier of a new Malaysia. Being on the frontier of a new Malaysia is a daunting experience because we don't even have the map. We don't know what this country is going to look like. We don't know what this new Malaysia is going to be like. We have no compass, no map. But this allows us to invent certain things. However, the new parties that have come to power and the parties that are already in power are now going to be confronted with demands that I think are going to put strain on civil society and the political process. On the one hand, I want to be optimistic and say that what we saw last weekend was a departure from the old mode of communal race-based politics. But let's not forget, that in the weeks before the elections, we saw a number of different groupings come to the fore and present their demands on both the government and the opposition in the country. I'm happy that these demands came from civil society. I'm happy that these demands came from public actors, civil society actors, NGOs and lobby groups. But let's look at the nature of the demands themselves. We're at a very funny point in our history where on the one hand we have the entire spectrum of civil society activism. We have movements like Bersih that put to the fore issues and demands that are universal by nature. These are non-contentious issues that apply to all Malaysians. However, the residual mindset of thinking of my community, my race, my religion first is still there. And I think this is what we, civil society, need to be cautious about. You recall that shortly after the election campaign was announced, a coalition of 88 Muslim NGOs came to the fore and listed their demands on all parties, government and opposition. And among these demands were the call for Malaysia to be recognized as a religious state, a rejection of secularism, a rejection of pluralism. Now, while as a civil society activist, I respect their right to make these demands, I think it is incumbent on all of us who want to create a plural, democratic, civil society space to also insist that all parties, stick to the promises that they've made, the commitment they've made to the People's Declaration, which is to actually begin to invent a politics that is non-sectarian, non-communitarian, which does not favor one religious community or another. I'm likewise concerned about the issues raised by other religious communities in this country, be they Christian, Buddhist or Hindu, that likewise were very defensive prior to the elections. Now, when we have this opening, I think it is incumbent for us to invent and create a new Malaysian politics where these demands can be brought into the public domain, but at the same time reconciled on the basis of a broader, deeper template of a Malaysian politics where our citizenship comes first, before all else. We should be brave enough to imagine that one day we will actually have a truly democratic politics in Malaysia, where the only criteria that is important, the only criteria that counts for our political participation is this identity card we carry that says, I am a Malaysian citizen. And if and when that happens, then at least we can say for once, Malaysia boleh, and I'm proud to be a Malaysian. Thank you very much.
I think you will all agree that we are proud to have a Malaysian like Dr. Faris Noor, in young state, the ethos and aspirations of all genuine Malaysians, not racist or extremist, but genuine, normal Malaysians. I think he has raised a very important point in the illustration of cyberspace. This concept of ketuananship, I hope it will be picked up by other members of the panel, because that seems to be the root of a lot of evil. And the second point is this new Malaysian politics. I think it's something maybe we should organize another seminar, because we don't want to be accused of being critical or even sometimes unfairly called negative. We want to come up more positively with a plan. This is what we stand for. I think CPPS came out with a Merdeka statement, and others have come out with other statements. Maybe we should work towards putting it together. Now, thank you very much. Now we have Mr. Malik Imtiaz Sarawak. You all know of him.